Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us in the workshop, FPCTP Annual Reports in Salesforce. Claudia is going to lead us in looking at annual reporting in Salesforce platform. And I will be along if there's any content questions related to what you're entering. But we'll just go ahead and get started as folks continue to come in. And we're so excited to see everybody this morning. This is the last day of our mid-year and an opportunity for each of you to get a little more hands-on information with the components that we've already worked out in different webinars, but we'll get a little more specific this time. We do ask that you log in. We sent out an email yesterday giving you a little instructions about how to participate today, so that you can leave with at least one example of working in Salesforce with student information. And if you're at the point where you can do follow-up information, having data on at least one student so you can walk away with that being complete and we can provide that assistance. We have noticed that there are several folks who have completed the program information, and in that was helpful. Drew and I start giving feedback beginning next week, although the deadline isn't here, but we can start giving feedback to kind of walk through keeping the annual reports clean. We did notice some areas that Claudia is going to go over with you on that maybe need some clarification. So you'll have an opportunity to go back in your annual report program information and see how you're responding to that. With the student information, again, if you have some student information, at least on one student, that would be great. And log in and follow along with us, because some of you have completed that program information. We think that this time together will give us a little more individual time. So we do want it to be a workshop, and we do want you to ask questions and or make suggestions for those of you who have not had a chance to go in. But we will go over the platform as always, because it's always good to get a refresher. So Claudia is going to go over the Salesforce platform, then quickly go through the program information, which is information that we went through in a previous webinar, but kind of just, again, a refresher of that, and the student information. We want to make sure that you get to look at that student follow-up information for those of you who had graduates last year. And so that's the component that we didn't cover before. And throughout, she's going to, again, help you see the connections of how Salesforce is laid out between the application, the program information, previous reports, and scholarships requests. So, excuse me, that'll be that. And then the reminders that you are receiving. So we do want to remind you that this is the visual for Salesforce, if you haven't gone before, and hopefully you've gotten instructions of how to get in there. But we will issue 2 licenses. Now, we know that some of you have requested more than one person have access. Well, you're limited to 2. And so one of the things that you can do is you can share login information and with one of your colleagues, staff members, so that you can, that person can access the portable for scholarships, for application renewals, for in the future grants. So 2 is what you have. Keep that in mind. And we need to know that. Again, always update your information in Salesforce so that we rely on that updated information when we're posting information on the website. And we know there's been a lot of turnover recently, but as often as you can, please keep the Salesforce information accurate, because that's how we've been sending our emails. Now, what we won't do is go through the PowerPoint blow by blow or slide by slide, because Claudia is actually going to walk you through in Salesforce. We provided the PowerPoint so that you can have that as a reference and make notes. Again, so there may be something that we miss that you want to see that's on the handout, but Claudia will walk through all of that in Salesforce. Okay. Any questions at this time? And we'll stop between each one of the components to make sure if we haven't answered questions, but you're certainly open to ask questions as we go throughout. Okay, so I'll stop sharing and you're going to go into Salesforce, Claudia.
Yeah. Let me do that. And let me know if you can see it or if I need to zoom in a little bit.
No, we can see it.
Okay. So, okay, perfect. So as Janet said, first thing to know is that for those who have requested older licenses, we already have those coming. So I think that for the institutions that only have one at this point, I'm guessing that by next week, we should have the additional ones if you want to add that second one that you're not having at this moment. But we will let you know when we have those available, and I think those are coming pretty soon. Let's first talk about login for those that have never been in here in the Fcsua Salesforce community. So the URL is fcsua.force.com. That is in the PowerPoint. And for you to be able to log in, we have to assign those licenses. So if you're not able to do it or you have any issues, just let us know and we will help you out with the access. If you want at this time log in, if you have not done so yet and you want to follow along and work with us, so let's give it a minute so everyone that wants to do it can go in and make sure that everyone is it's in. So just let me know or give me a thumbs up when you're ready for me to go in. Okay. Okay. So let's just do a quick overview, and I definitely am not going to stop on the other components because I definitely want to focus, as Janet said, once you logged in, always make sure that your institutional profile is up to date, and that is the second tab here on your navigation menu. So please click there and make sure that everyone that you have listed has the correct information, that everyone is in the correct role, because the roles are not only contact information for us and for you. Based on the roles that you have in there, other functions in Salesforce may happen or not, especially with the grants. So depending on the role that you have someone assigned, that person will receive notifications, email notifications related to any of the components. So that's another reason why we definitely recommend that you have these contacts up to date. I'm sure that you already know we also have, so we have the applications, the grants, and stay tuned for the grants because we're having updates soon. We have the scholarship cost estimators and student request forms in here. And today we're going to focus in the annual report, program information, student information, and the follow-up report. So I am going to start with the program information forms. So the program information form has 6 sections. So my idea doing this is I'm going to go through each section and I will stop at the end of the section to see if anyone has questions. Something that we noticed while we were preparing the workshop is that most of the programs already have their program information report in. Some have already submitted and some still have it as a draft. So if that is the case, my recommendation is that you open it up and you follow along. So if you have questions, you have a specific question, you're not sure what to answer in a specific section, that this is definitely the opportunity to ask and clarify what you need to answer, and Janice will be answering those questions. If you don't have your annual report program information up, you don't even have a draft. So my recommendation is also to start that annual report today, and at least when we leave the workshop at noon, you have a draft version of that program information form. But definitely the program information form is the one we have seen that is, let's say that everyone has worked on it. So we're going to quickly work to that. Depending on the status of your application, of your FPCTP, you might find in 2 different situations. You might be an established program that already has a program, a report, a program information form report in Salesforce. If that is your case, it's because we entered that information for you. So as you're seeing in the screen, this test account that we have, it's in that situation. So previous year report, so 2019, 2020, we entered that information. And the reason why we did that is because we also developed a clone last year report functionality. That means that you don't have to start over the report. So you can use that information that you have in there and just update what is new to the program instead of starting from scratch every year, which is a 6-section online form, and that definitely is going to take time. So if you are in that situation, and you should know that if you're in, you should be seeing your 2019, 2020 report. The other case is that you are new. You are a recently approved program, so this is going to be your first year completing the annual report. So in your case, what you're going to do is you're going to click on new. You're not going to have a reference, a record reference for you to clone. So in your case, what you're going to do is click on new. Something very important about the annual report program information, when you're working on all these components, this one needs to be completed first. And this is when the connection that we talked about comes in, because part of the annual report program information is the credentials that the FPCTPs are offering, and that it's connected 100% to the students. So that's what you offer in your program. And then when you're going to work in your student report, you're going to say, okay, this student is enrolled in this CTE program or in this concentration or track, or is supposed to earn this micro-credential badge at the end of the program. So when you're going to work with your student, you need to make sure that all the credentials that you have listed there, depending on your program structure, is accurate. So that's what we have recommend that you work on your program information form first. And actually, the system is not going to allow you to work in the student reports for 2021 for this reporting year that is closing if you don't have a program information form for the same reporting year, because the students report will pull from the program report. So that is something to consider. And you're gonna get a big rec message if you try to do that. It's going to tell you have to go to the program information form. So as I was saying, you have two different options: clone last year report, depending on if you have an established program and you already have a record from previous year, or you're going to click new if this is your first time completing the annual report. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do I'm going to use the clone functionality so you can see what happened. The form is exactly the same. So it's only just saving you some time. So I am going to clone my 2019-2020 report, and it's going to actually change the reporting year. So something you don't have to worry if you are in that situation. Its reporting year is actually going to change. It's going to update that field for you, which is very important because it means that it's pulling from the previous year. Then section 1, it's basically the general information about the program. And the important thing to clarify is that along the reporting year, you need to enter your FPCTP name. The reason why we're having that information here is because these two fields are actually the ones making the connection. Let's say that you are, as I mentioned, you are an established program. So when you create a new record for this year, what's going to happen? It's going to pull all that information from your previous annual report, your staff information, your credentials, everything that you have in there is going to come from your previous annual report. If you are a new program, what's going to happen is that we want to help you out with the credentials, all the information about the structure that you indicated during while you were working on your FPCTP application. So what's going to happen is that it's going to pull from the application instead. If you're a new program, you don't have a program information form reference, it's going to pull from you the most recent and most up-to-date record that we have for you, which is the application. So that's why it is important to, other than completing the reporting year, you enter your FPCTP name. After that, so also what it actually pulls when you open this is the primary program contact person. This also happens if you're creating a brand new and empty form, because this is your first time. It pulls that information for you. But if your program, or you are in a situation, as Janice was saying, that you have maxed out your licenses and someone else in your program is actually working on the annual reports, and that person is sharing the license with other staff member, we have a question for that. We want to know who is exactly completing the annual report. Who is the person working on that? So that's what this question 4 is about. So if someone different from the primary program contact, from the person logged in up here, here's where you indicate the name. So if that's your case, you answer yes, and you enter all the information. The other questions here are related to how the program initiated, when the students were first enrolled, if the program served students with intellectual disabilities prior to be an FPCTP, or when was the first the data started serving students. Also, the semesters, what are the semesters that your program serving students? And something that I consider a very important thing here, it's you have the opportunity to report on the status of your federal CTP application. So if you were in the timeline when it's time for your program to submit that application to be approved, here's where you're going to update us about the status of that application. So it's question 8, and it depends on your status. You will say what's happening with that. If this has not been submitted, it's committed to submit it in a specific date, it was already approved, and when it was already approved. So if you were recently approved and you have to submit the files that support that approval, this is also the place to do that. You actually upload the files up here, and it will come up and it will actually attach to this report. For records, and also for your records. So this is basically section 1. And anyone has any questions about this section in particular? Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, Danny asked a question about question number 5. And in question number 5, Danny, I posted it in the general, where you are, is this the first day? Question number 5, approximately at what date did your approved FPCTP first enrolled students? So we're looking at pretty much like around the beginning of the semester. So you could think of your terms or your semester. When was that you actually enrolled them? Because that's when the official semester begins. That's a great question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Hi, this is Christy. I do have a question as far as the CTP approval. Do we have to upload the documentation if it's already been approved? It's already indicating in my application, it was approved in 2019. Do I still have to upload another?
If we don't have it, and Ashley has got a chart of who has it, and it's primarily for those new programs, because I think we have a record of everybody else. But our most recent programs coming on board, if they have not submitted their CTP status, then we need to see that, whether they've submitted the application and gotten notice back, or they have the approval. So no, you don't have to keep uploading that.
Right.
Once we get it one time, that's good enough.
That's it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mhm.
Anyone else? Okay. All right. Think we're good in section 1. So let's move on to section 2. So section 2 is about staffing, and this is a pretty easy one, section to go through. But what we want to mention here is we want you to enter the staff members. Let's back up for a second. So remember that you're reporting on a specific time frame. So in this case, you are going to report 2020, 2021. So it's what happened in your program during that time. So those are the staff members that you have to enter. So the staff members that were part of your FPCTP that work with you during that time frame. So if you have others that are coming on board after the 2021, that time frame, then it's something that you will report on the next year, not this one. So that is something to keep in mind. always keep in mind that you're reporting in a time frame. So your data is going to be about what happened in your FPCTP during that time frame. Other than that, it's just a matter of just clicking here on a staff member. It asks you about the hours that the staff member actually was, working on the different roles with the FPCTP, the FTE, and the funding, where the funding is to pay for that staff member came from for the FPCTP grant of other sources. And this form has some checkups or restrictions to make sure that you don't make mistakes in terms of the time. So if you're putting more, if you are saying that the staff is working 40 hours for the FPCTP, but then when you're distributing those hours in the different roles, and it doesn't add up to the total, it will let you know. So you're sure that you're entering. So Salesforce would do the math for you, making sure that that the information that you're entering is accurate. Similar with the funding, how many hours, those hours have to equal the total amount of hours that staff members working with the FPCTP. So all that information, if you are entering that and you're making any mistakes, you won't be able to save it until you correct that. Salesforce will tell you what is going on with that if it's wrong, and it will tell you what to do to correct it. You will get a red big message at the top of your screen when you do that. Okay. Any questions on staff members?
None. Let's see.
None?
I have here. Nope, not right now.
Okay. Okay. Then we move on to section 3. And Janice, I wanted to talk in section 3 about, and maybe we do that when we get to section 5, because there are questions that might be similar, but this is also a very easy section to work through. It's all the institutions or external organizations that work with you or work with the FPCTP. That's basically, and what we ask is, select your organization. If it's not listed in this drop-down list, you just click on other and you enter the name, and then you describe or you type service or experience that agency offers to your program. That's basically what needs to be entered in section 3. Christy?
Yes, so our students had worked doing like a volunteer internship, but they didn't this last year because of COVID. So is it something that I would remove, or, I mean, it's something we want to go back to, but nobody was able to do it last year.
My suggestion, and Janice, just please correct me here. So I think we go back to what we were saying about that you are reporting in a time frame. So if during that time, and I think that your question comes from the fact that you already have an annual report in Salesforce. So you might be, taking advantage of the cloning function. So if you are not working with that agency, or you did not work with that agency during this year, what you have to do is update that list and just make sure that you delete the ones that you were not working with during that time. And if the next year it comes back, then you will have it in the next year report.
That's correct.
Thank you. Makes sense.
That's correct. Yeah.
Any other questions in the chat?
No.
Okay, let's move on to the credentials. So this is definitely a big section in the annual report, and this is one of the reasons we said that you have to work on this in the annual report first. Based on when you update in here is what you're going to see later when you work in your student reports, because this is your program structure. This is what you offer to your students. And this actually goes back to that questions for those of you that have completed an FPCTP application in Salesforce or have seen the Word document that we have in our website. We have 3 different options. So depending on your program, is the option that you're going to pick. Maybe your option 1, maybe your option 2, maybe your option 3, and what you are offering CTE to it as a part of your structure. So that's what is going to be reflected in here. So in the credentials section, make sure that what you have, if that what you have in here is accurate and it actually corresponds to what you offered during the 2020-2021, thinking always about your students. If you have a credential that it was pursued by a student and you don't have it in here, it's not going to show up in your student reports. So you need to make sure that that credential is added in here so it shows in your student reports later. So that is why we recommend you stop in section 4, you revisit this, and you make sure that everything that you're having here is accurate to the detail. If
And
you have
Claudia-
new, yeah, go ahead.
And Claudia, I would say for our new programs, these are the credentials and concentrations and tracks that you anticipate. If you haven't brought students on board, this is what your application said you will bring in. And you may not have students to connect with it, but get the whatever you have in your application, that's what has pulled over. And once you get students entering your program, then that'll be updated next year. Yeah.
Good point. Very good point. And this example it's actually an option too for those programs that have concentrations and tracks. So yours is going to look a little bit different, of course, depending on your previous report, or if you're a new program and you're, as Janice was saying, is pulling for your application instead. Section 4 will look different a little bit. So let's say that you have, and something I know it happens, maybe you're offering a new certification, or you have included a new certification and you want to report that to us. This is the time and place to add that certification or that micro-credential. Maybe you have a new CTE. So this is the time during the annual report to update your program structure. Thinking always about that when you work on your student reports, all that information is going to move on to your students and it will be different. You will see how you only pick, okay, this student is enrolled in this to earn this credential. And it's a mirror of section 4 of the program information form.
So again, keep in mind, whatever you offer during the year, not what you're going to offer, because whatever you're going to change or do for the next year, and some of you are definitely in the throes of that. Some of you are already know that when the fall comes, you're going to create a micro-credential that maybe you didn't have before. You're going to rearrange some of your structure of what you offer, but that wasn't during the 2021 year. So keep in mind, it's whatever happened during that year, and you've already made plans for next year. That'll be reported next year.
Next year, exactly. Yes, always work on this form, keeping in mind that you're working on a time frame, and that will help you out to distinguish and to decide which information needs to go in or which not.
Okay, Jeanette is not seeing how to add the credential information in section 12. Section 12 or number 12? Okay, number 12.
So you're not, Jeanette, you're not seeing this action down here?
Not, let me see again. I didn't see it when I was just there trying to add that.
Okay, so it might be because you're not, and this is a very good question, actually.
Yeah.
You might not have the form open in view in edit mode. That's what might be happening. So if you don't open your form, and for that you have when you are in the list, actually outside of this form, you have your program information form record. If you click on the icon, you will only open as a view only. It will open as a view only. You won't be able to change, edit any information. If you click on the pencil, then you will open and it will be available for edit. So I think that's what's happening in your case.
Yeah, she's able to edit other information.
Yeah.
Jeanette, you're not able to edit that?
No, it's just that one area, but I can add, but we were able to edit in other sections because I did go back up and put on the edit mode.
Okay, so do you, and for that, I think I have to go back to section 1. You need to make sure that you are that you have completed this question 2 on the section 1, that you're selecting, you have selected your FPCTP name and your reporting year, because the credentials actually are pulled based on this. That these are the 2 fields that establish the connection and pull the correct information.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
All right, so I need to go back and edit section 2 first.
Yeah, you have to go back to section 1 and make sure that you have those two fields with information in it.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna refresh. All right, thank
Okay.
you.
No problem. So let me go back to section 4 and see if anyone else have any questions. Please unmute yourself and yeah. Okay,
more.
go ahead.
Mm-mm.
No?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on to section 5. Oh, something very, for me, it's actually very helpful. So all the sections have this collapse that it actually saves you some space in your screen. So if you're done with section 4 and you just want to be scrolling down, because we know it's a very long report, have 6 sections and a lot of questions for each section, take advantage of this. Take advantage of the collapse. So it actually closes the section so you can move on and easily see the next one. For me, that helps a lot when I'm working in this kind of form that had a lot of information. So section 5, it's about recruitment, enrollment, and retention. This had all the questions related to how many students do you have, how many students are you going to accept, how many students exited your program. So these are the questions that you will see in section 5. But I want to stop in question 15, because something that we notice is that sometimes here you have some of the entities repeated in section 3. So, and remember that section 3, I'm going to go up very quickly. It's about the external service providers. For section 5, and we want to point out that the question is regarding student recruitment.
Yeah.
So that's what we want to know. We don't want to, they're not exactly the same agencies that we're asking in section 3. This one is specifically to student recruitment. So you don't have.
Yeah, we noticed that on some of the program information, those of you who have it in draft or have completed it, that maybe you had the agencies twice. Now, if the agency helped with recruitment, that's appropriate. But if they didn't help with recruitment, then you need to remove those from this section. So pay attention to that. We saw where there was some duplicate reporting so far on a couple of the ones that are in draft or have been submitted.
Right.
I have a question. Needless to say, we don't need to recruit. They're here. They're here and they're coming from other entities. But do we list where we're getting these leads from, the students that want to join our program? Like, for example, vocational rehab, or they're coming from some private schools. Do we list that here?
So,
or no? We don't go out to recruit, they come to us. So do we list those resources here, where they're coming from? Those leads?
Yes, who are regarding student recruitment. If you're working with them and they're sending you, they're working with you to send out information about recruitment, then that's when they would be here.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's why I say if there's some duplication, like if you have BR up in section 3 and you have them down here too, maybe you have an agreement, maybe that collaboration with them. We just want to understand. And
okay.
And after this workshop, and when Drew and I start reviewing, we might ask the question again if we see it, because we don't know what the difference is, and want to make sure that you're talking about recruitment efforts and not the agencies that are funding. And they may be doing both. So it depends on the collaboration you're involved with. Did I answer your question, Anna?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions in the chat?
Yes, I was going through, Danny had a question for section 5 regarding determining eligible students in the target recruitment area. She had a question about established programs, asking what data sources have you used to answer 13 and 14. How many eligible students, 13 and 14, A and B, and
Okay.
describe what kind of information you use to make this estimate.
And then I saw the example already provided, which is
Okay.
great. And then Kelly had mentioned she used like national, like I was thinking, oh, okay, let me find like the census and try to do some calculation. But I
Okay.
like the example on the screen too.
Yeah. Okay, Kelly. So Kelly answered, and I think that's it. Okay.
Okay.
And Amanda
I
posted.
still don't feel like I have clarification though, because the example is different than what I have in my last year's report. The example appears to be just that you're using it, the inquiries, like a log of people that inquired. And what I had to put in last year's report was, look at the percentage of students that have ID nationwide, statewide, that kind of thing. And then
Kelly, this is an
clarification.
example. This is perfect. Claudia just put in, she didn't use any program. She just made up something to put in there as an example that.
Okay.
So yes, most of them, when we looked at your annual reports, you used the local data. So Danny, they used the local statistics, what's the school, what they had to kind of give an idea of how many students are eligible, to participate. So that is, Kelly, consistent with what you did, and it would be the same.
Okay.
And this is
Great,
just, you're welcome. Thank you.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So so section 5 actually has 3 different subsections. So it's eligibility and recruitment. It's where we talked about that question 15, and then we have FPCTP enrollment this reported year. So same thing here. Just keep in mind that you're reporting 2020, 2021. So those numbers need to correspond to that time frame. Those are the numbers that we're asking here in the enrollment section. And then we have the projections. So what is the projection for the next reporting year based on the information that you have? And future. What are the enrollment projections for the future? Not only the next year, but also the enrollment projections for the future for the FPCTP. So this ends section 5. If we don't have any other questions, I'm going to move to section 6, which is basically about peer mentors. This, for those that have peer mentors, is basically the information. How many peer mentors do you have? Do you use a peer mentor? How many hours they work? How do you how are these peer mentors compensated? So that's the kind of information that we're asking here. I think this one is pretty straightforward. And we have an option here to upload documents. Anything that you want to submit, with your report to support your annual report, your program report for the 2021 year and for the following years, this is also the place to upload those documents, and it will be listed down here. And then I want to move, if there are not further questions with section 6 about peer mentors, I wanted to move on to the submission and approval process. So how is this submitted? So you have 2 options here. As some of you are working on it right now, most of you already have a report in Salesforce, but you haven't saved as a draft. So that happens every time that you say, okay, I'm done for today, entering the data that I have. So I'm just going to click save. It's going to stay as a draft. It's not going to come to us. So it stays with you for you to work on it and add all the information until you're sure. When you're ready, when you think it's done, then you click on submit. And what happens at that moment is that you receive a notification. You receive an email that says that in this case, our institution is called webinar. So your webinar 2021 annual report program information has been submitted. And we received a notification too. So it goes to Janice and to Drew, so they know that webinar annual report is ready for revisions. So what happens after that is we revise the annual report. One suggestion and one tip that we have, that it's my personal way to work on this. Try to complete as much information as possible. We don't have, as you can see, we don't have a lot of fields required. The reason why we don't have that is because fields that are required is fields that you have to complete before saving your form. And if we have that, we have all the fields required, what's going to happen is that you will have to enter all the information before you save it, even as a draft. We don't want to do that. We want you to be able to come back to your report as many times as you need to get, the data in there as accurate as possible. So just make sure that when you're going to submit it, you have respond all the questions, or you have reached out to us if you have questions regarding the sections before you submit it. Because what happens after that is that Janice and Drew will take over this, they will revise it, and if they have any comments, if they have any questions regarding the data, they will put that in Salesforce. You are not seeing those sections here, those areas for comments in here, because this is a brand new report that I created. But if, let's say that there are questions regarding the peer mentor section, another field will come up in here, different color, I think it's blue, with the comments from Janice and Drew. And you will receive an email saying that your annual report needs attention. There are updates needed in your annual report, and that is actually the status. Your status will change from submitted to updates needed. So when you go in, you will look for those comment sections in a different color, and you will see those sections in each those comments. In each section that we have questions about the data, or we are asking for more details or information clarification. So that's the way the submission process works. You submit it to us. If we have questions, we put those comments in Salesforce. You receive an email that it's indicating that you have to go back to Salesforce and work on those suggestions. And then what you do is you come back here and you submit it back to us. Or if you're not done, you just save it until you're done with all the comments and all the questions that we have about the information. Once it's approved, you also will receive another email saying that it's done, it's completed, it's 100% accurate, we're fine with that, and there's nothing else that you have to do about the annual report program information. Let's see. And the other options that might not be approved, that is also an option. It's because there are large amount of information that is missing, it needs correction, you have to revisit the entire report. But basically you will receive email notifications, and who will receive those notifications? The primary program contact, and that's why we always go back to the contacts in Salesforce. The person that completed the annual report. Remember that question 4 on section 1. Is someone else other than the primary program contact is completing this report, please indicate that contact information. So if you are in that situation, make sure that you respond to that question 4. Let me go back there. To that question 4 in section 1, because if you have a name in there, that person will also receive the emails regarding the notifications and the status updates regarding the annual report. So that's why it's so important that you respond to that question, but also that the contact informations are up to date.
Claudia?
Yes.
Right, that's very helpful to look at those comments. So right now we have one program that has actually submitted it. So similar to our other procedures, once you submit it, then you're not able to go back into it. That means to us that you are ready for us to take a look, and we'll take a look. So a question that's in the couple of questions that's in the chat, and that is, do we add our planning tool reports here? No, we will go in the strategic planning tool to look at your progress updates. We can get those from the strategic plan. So you don't need to add that here. So that's in a different platform. I think that's a great question in adding it, thinking about adding it here. And then also, does the program report need to be approved by us before you go forward with the student information? No, not necessarily. If you submit your program information for us to look at, then we're going to look at it. If you click submit, then we're going to look at it and think that you are finished. But that you don't need to wait on us to then move forward to work with your student information. It's important to work in your program information because of the connection with the credentials and the concentrations and whether a student has completed or not. So no, you don't need our approval for that.
Right. And something to add to that, Janice, is that there is no restriction on the time that you need to work, you start working on this. These
Right.
components are open all the year long. So if you think that you can start in May or April, it's okay. You just go ahead and do it and work on that. And if you think it's time for us to take a look, even if it's not August 1st, it's okay. There is no restriction in terms of time on when to start working on your annual reports. So
Yeah.
that's something to point out in there.
Vivian, do you want me to put that back as draft? Vivian accidentally hit submit. So you want me to
Oh.
put that back as
That
draft?
would be lovely. Thank you. I was like, I thought if anyone is watching my face, it was Tara. And I was like, wait, I'm on the wrong screen. So no, we've gotten ahead. Claudia, you're doing amazing. And Janice as well. Thank you. But no, we're definitely not done.
That's
so
okay.
yeah.
And that's actually a good question. I mean, that kind of things happen. We have more control over those to help you out. So if that kind of things happen, just let us know and we will change the status. Something that I always say, if you look details in this Salesforce community, you're not going to see other than the delete that you have in the credentials and the staff members. You're not going to be able to delete the record per se. So you're not going to be able to delete the annual report. And we did this intentionally. So you sometimes, mistakes happen and we want to avoid that. We can't retrieve the record back, but we definitely want you to, and what I say is you're not going to break it. That's what I'm trying to say. Don't be afraid of Salesforce. You're not going to break it. There's not a delete button for you to delete your annual report or your application. Go ahead and work on it and save it as a draft and just keep it going until and that is all is in there and you're ready to submit it to us. And something that I want to say, and actually I'm going to submit this one so you see what Janice was mentioning. I submitted, it said that it was submitted successfully, and I'm going to close the form. So this is the one that I just created. I created a 2021. See how I cannot edit. It's grayed out because the status actually it's changed to submitted. So it means that now it's in our end. It's an Fcsua to revisit and revise the form. So if you are in the situation that your status is changing to updates needed because you have comments and you have to work on recommendations from our end, this here will change to updates needed, but the pencil icon will come up live again. So it's kind of helping you out not to touch the record until it's ready for you to go back to it. So any other questions in the chat before I move to the reminders?
No, not right now.
Okay, so the last thing on the report on the program information is the reminders. So you all have, I think this last Monday, you received a set of emails. So those reminders start going out 90 days out of the due date. So they start in May. You get an email in May, and then after 30 days, when you are 60 days out, you're going to start receiving an email every week. I have those set up for Monday, 9 a.m. So every Monday, 9 a.m. until August 1st, and until you submit your report, you're still going to receive the reminders telling you, hey, it's time to send it. They're due on August 1st. Maybe if you have it as a draft, because sometimes you say, okay, I have it in there, but I forgot to submit it. So it's also a reminder for you to still have it as a draft, go ahead and submit it to Fcsua. So that's the way the reminders work. And they stop once you submit, once you have it submit, you stop getting those emails. Okay, any questions? Okay, so I think we're through with the program information.
And Amanda loves those emails, those reminders.
That's good to know. That is so good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are gonna go now to the student information forms, and I'm gonna go to the next tab here in navigation. So I actually have 2 records created in here, and as you can see, we are the students. So I have student, Janice is a student, and Melanie is another student. So we have two different scenarios here with the students. You might have new students, or you might have students that are continuing your program. So they already have a previous report. And when I mean previous report, similar to what you're seeing in my screen, if you have previous, let's say 2019, 2020 student information reports, we enter those for you. So you can take advantage of the cloning functionality that also exists for those records. So you don't start from scratch. You only create the reports for those students that are new to your program, or were new to your program during 2020, 2021. So that means that you're going to use the cloning functionality, or you're going to use the new student report action up here. It depends. And I think you will be doing both. If you have new students enrolled, this is the one you're going to use. And you're always going to take advantage of this one while you have students that are continuing your program. So let's actually go with this one first. So let's click new student. Let's click new student report, and the form is going to come up. The first thing that you have to do, and similar to the program information form, the reporting academic year is very important, because that's one of the fields that establish the connection. And I'm going to talk about the connection in a few seconds. So in this case, we're going to do 2020, 2021, actually have it here. Because I have students that were new to my program during this reporting year, and I requested scholarships for them. So they are already as part of my cost estimators in the scholarships. So that is going to save us some time. That is going to list the name for us, telling us if you request a scholarship for these students, you have to report on them. So their names are going to be there. You're going to click on select student, and actually I have all these students here, and I know that Drew was a new student, Claudia, Philip, and Ashley were new students. But this name was actually part of the list that I showed you before. That is actually telling you that Melanie is a continuing student, but it's in here to let you know that if you want to start Melanie's annual report from the beginning, you can do it. I mean, I will always recommend that you take advantage of the cloning function, but if you want to start over, you can. So it's also, that's why Melanie's name is showing here. So what you have to do in this case, I'm going to create Drew's annual report. So I click on Drew, and you see how here actually Drew's information is populated, name and a student ID. The other option that you have in this pop-up form is the newest student. So, and that's also a use case. So you might have a student, and Janice will help me out in here. You might have students that did not receive scholarships, but they're part of your FPCTP. So they're not going to be listed, but you still have to report on it because they're FPCTP students. So that's why we have this new student action here. So you will add that student, you will enter a student name and a student ID, and you will save it. So we are also thinking about that use case, or that possible scenario for you, that you have a student that did not receive a scholarship, or it's not a continuum. Maybe it's a new student that did not receive a scholarship. Here's an option for you to add that student to your institution and to work on your annual report on that student report.
And Claudia, that's correct. And excuse me, we know that some of your programs, again, we're only asking for FPCTP students. Some of you have students in your broader program that are not our students, who are eligible, who are not eligible for scholarship. So we only want the report on the FPCTP students. And then there may be a situation where a student did not accept the scholarship for one reason or another because of the number of supports that they have. But we do want to know that they were one of our students. So yes, you're right on that, Claudia.
Okay. Okay, so before I just lift this this list,
Oh. Sorry.
that's okay. So before I leave this, I just want to go back, just how is this list completed? So you have two ways to get the names in here. You get from the same reporting year, a student request forms. You are reporting 2021. This time you're doing report for 2020, 2021. If you requested scholarships for new students for the 2020, 2021, those names will come in here. So you don't have to remember. It will be there for you to see, okay, I have to do an NN report for this student. And the other way is similar to the situation that I explained with the student Melanie, is this student is a continuing student. It was part of the program last year. I have a 2019-2021 report, but when I report the student, I said that this student is continuing. So I still have to do a report on the student. So that's why that name is in there. So that's the connection. That's how this this list gets populated. Let me close. And do we have any questions related to that?
No question.
Okay, perfect. So let's keep moving. So I'm actually going to scroll down and show you. I'm going to save this as a draft. And I am going to show you the cloning function with Melanie, because it's a continuing student and something that I want you to know. Before I created Drew, I have Janice and Melanie. See all the three actions that I have available. I have clone, I have view, and I have edit. See how for Janice, clone is not available. That means that you don't have to do a student report on Janice. That means because in 2019, when I did Janice's report, I said that Janice exited the program. So that is actually helping you out and telling you, you don't have to worry about this. The student exited the program. And if you said that the student completed the program requirements, what is going to happen is that we work on the student follow-up report, then you have to do a follow-up with your graduates for 5 years. So Janice's name is going to show up in here. So that's why this action here is grayed out. For Melanie, it is different. It's telling us that she's a continuing student. She is going to keep, working on your program. She's not graduated yet. So that's why the clone function is live, it's active. That tells you, yeah, you can go ahead and clone Melanie's report. And that's what we're going to do. And that's what is going to save you some time. So you don't have to start every year, all the students' reports one more time from scratch. So similar to the program information, it updates the reporting year for you. So the system is smart enough to, okay, you clone a 2019, 2020, it means that you're going to work in a 2021. It moves everything to the 2021 report. And as we were talking about the credentials, here's where the credentials, all the sections, information about the program structure comes to life, and you can see how useful they can be. It's because for each section, you have to say what's going on with the student and the status related to the student, where does the student enroll? What is the student expected to end at the completion of the FPCTP? So these are the ones that I had in my program information form. That's what I make sure that when I work on my program information form, all this were entered correctly. And my recommendation for this is always to make sure that you have, if you have concentrations and tracks in CTE programs, you know that you can have credentials and micro-credentials or certification within those concentrations or CTE. Go all the way in. Go make sure that, for example, Melanie is, let's see if it's 3D animation. We're going to actually enroll Melanie in baking and pastry. But she's not only going to be part of this concentration, she's going to pursue the food safety certification. Make sure that you're clicking there, because this form, this tiny pop-up is there for you to indicate that she's enrolled. She's expected to earn that certification at some point. And just make sure to say. So that is something that is important, that you say what's happening with that student as the question is asking. So please indicate micro-credentials, certifications, and badges which this student is enrolled. So all certification and credential he or she is anticipated to earn by the time that the student completes the program. That's what section 1 is about. What are the expectations? So then it's basically demographic information. So where's the student coming from K-12, when the student graduated for K-12, what the student earned at the completion of high school, where's the living, how and what is the living situation of the student? What are the career clusters the students is interested in? Something here to point out, you can choose all or apply in this case. You only have to just hold Control key or Command, depending of the computer that you're using, and you can select multiple. If the student is interested in more than one career cluster, making sure that you are reporting all the information. So that is also a possibility. If the student was, yeah.
Can you explain more differences of the 3 options that you were previously going over when you were asking them to dig in a little more? Is that it, Amanda, on whether they are enrolled, or that option where Claudia asked for you to go in, dig in a little more to tell the status of the student? Is that where
okay?
Yeah, like the difference of the micro-credentials, concentrations, and certifications.
Well, that depends. Yeah. Go ahead, Janice.
Yeah, you're wanting clarification on what's micro-credential, concentrations, and certifications?
Yes.
So for some, well, first of all, you have your concentrations, like you have several concentrations, right? In your program that students can pursue. They don't just, they're just not included in one concentration, or they don't have one offering at Tallahassee, correct?
Yeah.
Program of study, their program of study is different. So we have concentration/tracks because we're looking at that and trying to encompass both what happens at state colleges and universities and our career tech, right? And so when you're looking at concentrations, you have like 3 options in Tallahassee that already pulled. How many options you have? 4?
We have 5. So it's
Okay,
like
5.
employment credential, and then they can get concentrations.
Okay, so when we talk about certifications, so let's say that certifications are if within your concentration, and we see that a lot with our technical colleges,
right,
that they can earn specific certifications within those concentrations that come with it. An example would be in education, you earn a teaching certification with, depending on which concentration you were in. If you had, you have a state certificate that aligns with your teaching degree. Whereas if you got a degree in English, there's no certification that comes with that specifically, right? Mm-hmm. When you look, but you do have that concentration, that track, that focus, like you have 5 that they're going into, but there may not be anything added to it. And then some of the programs include micro-credentials. That may be something that they have created locally and gotten approved, or it may be something that is within the industry that's a micro-credential or badge. But most of them are credentials that the programs have identified and shaped within their curriculum at their institution that you can create. Question?
Okay. I know, like,
I want to, go ahead, Amanda, go ahead.
Like, not all of our teachers award a micro credential, but some do, like a leadership one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What I was going to say is that this questions look different. It depends on your program. It depends on your programs. The fact that I'm showing here, as I started in the program information, I picked this a program that has an application with option 2 because it have the most levels. So I can show, all the different scenarios, but maybe you only have concentrations and you don't have micro-credentials or badges or certifications that are not related to those concentrations. Or maybe your concentrations, as Janice was saying, do not have certifications or micro-credentials within those. So that third step or that hierarchy, you might not see it. If you are in that case and you don't have anything in here, the only thing that you're going to see is if the student is enrolled. So it's that checkbox where you're going to see these questions. And that's why we ask you when you enter this is that you select your program information name, because it's very specific to your application and to your previous annual report. So this this example might not fit your use case, but it's something to, as an example, to show everyone how it might look. For example, CTEs, they don't have micro-credentials or badges outside of the CTEs. They're all included in the CTEs. Yeah. And if you notice, so if we go back to the program information form that I was completing a few minutes ago, I did have the option to add certifications. That program that I had as an example did not have certifications. That's where you're not seeing the certification area in here. You're only seeing micro-credentials and concentrations, because that's where your program structure is. That's why we say, always work on your program structure in the program information form first, because that's what you're gonna see on your students when you start working on your student, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you. Okay, so that is section 1. Section 1 is, let me go up for a second, it's the general information about the student, especially if you are cloning and you're taking advantage of that cloning functionality. You might find that you might not touch that that section when you clone and you work, because it just stay the same. So maybe you only go and just update section 2 because it's what's happening with that student during the reporting year. In this case, it's 2021. So that's one of the reasons we created the cloning functionality. So you don't have to work on those sections every year, because the general information that you provide to the student might stay the same. So you only clone it and you just edit what you need to edit. Just make sure you revise it, make sure that you answer all the questions, that all the information is in. But definitely there might be questions in section 1 that you don't have to update, because they are what they are when you first created the report, the original report. So in section 2, this has 2 very important questions in here, especially because this is what happened with that student during this year. So what was the student enrollment status? Is continuing from previous year? Was this a new student? Those are the options that you have in there. But if we look at question B, it's what was this student status at the completion of the reporting year? This is a very important question to answer, because depending on what you select is what's going to happen next. If you say that the student is continuing next year, one thing that's going to happen is that you're going to still next year going to have the clone function is still active. Because as a continuing student, you still have the student enroll in your program. So you can use that cloning function. If you say that the student exited the program this year, and I'm gonna do that just for a minute so you see what happens. Before, I don't have the section 3 because I changed it, because I changed section 2 to exit the program. Now I have a section 3 that is about the student exiting information. So you have to answer those additional questions. But if you said that a student is continuing next year, section 3 disappear. So there is a logic behind this form that helps you out to identify what set of questions do you have to answer or not. So that's why you have to be very careful about when you are responding those questions specifically. And because it's connected, everything is connected to the forms, to the previous and the ones that are coming up later, and to the follow-up forms. So that's why the status is very important. We have a question about the SIP, if the student made SIP, If the student struggle, then you describe what happened, what the additional support. If they not made SAP, also kind of description. And same with the last one, which is if the student did not make SAP and if it's leaving the FPCTP the following semester. What semester the student was enrolled in, fall, spring, and summer, or only fall and spring. In this case, for example, if you think a student, in this case, a student only attend fall and spring, this actually allows you to select all that apply as well. Just hold Control and select all the semester. If Command, if you are in a Mac, and select the semesters that a student is enrolled in. Same thing, living situation. Parent live the student or live the roommate. So those are the kind of options that you're going to see in there. And if you click Other, you have a place for you to describe and expand a little bit more into that. Then we have another questions related to the credentials. And this is exactly the set that we have in section 1. But this is the status. So those that you said in section 1 or that you have indicated when you first created the student report that the student was going to earn. So what's going on with that? What is the status at the end of the reporting year? For Melanie, we said that she was going to do baking and pastry. So she is continuing. She has not completed the concentration, and she has not taken the exam to get the food safety certification. So you have a set of options in there. Not just started, and maybe it's continuing. Maybe she already earned the certification, but she is still in the concentration. So you have several options there to pick. Of course, make sure you save it before you move on. So this, yes.
I'm sorry, Claudia, may
No,
I
go
ask
ahead.
a question? And this, I don't want to delay the process, but wouldn't and we're at a technical college, wouldn't our OCPs be popping up here along with the certifications or occupational completion points?
If you haven't listed in the program information form or in your previous annual report, it should be popping in there.
Okay, that's what I kept going back to, and I don't. So I know we're in student now, so I need to make sure that they popped in the annual report, but I'm not seeing that. I'm only seeing industry certifications.
Okay, so maybe then we have to revisit because this year, so 2020, 2021, as I explained, in your case, it's going to pull from 1920 because you already have a 1920. So maybe what we have to do is go back to 1920 and see if it's in section 4 of 1920, it's accurate. So if you want, Vivian, I can take a look later and let you know. You can take a look. I don't think you're going to be able to edit the 2019, 2020, but you can view. So take a look at section 4. And if you're seeing things that needs to be edited in there, maybe we miss it. Remember that we entered those information from Word documents, and maybe there's something that we need to add.
I think it also might be adding a different layer. It may be looking at something a little different because with the Word documents that it was all in there now, the way the application is currently set up, there's not an opportunity, and we need to look at that. Maybe under the certifications right now, as I'm looking in yours, Vivian, under baking and pastries, and you do have the different benchmark levels, and several programs have the levels. And when we put it in the program, it was like that. But what we didn't do under certifications, that maybe under certifications, because we ask about micro-credentials, it's not set up to address the benchmarks.
Right.
It's not set up to address the OCP. So, maybe that's something that we need to look at. And thank you, because that we didn't know, and how it was being built. This is awesome. Wasn't able to ask that level of understanding and what would pop up, because we still need that information. But there's no way for you to pick it. And that's
exactly. I kept going, that's going to pop up at some point, OCPs, because a student can earn OCPs and complete and have chosen not to take the industry certification that's listed, or taken it and not passed it. I mean, different scenarios. I know for us, this was a lengthy section because a student can earn each OCP, and in baking we have 2, and then the student can be a full completer, a full career certificate completer. So it's really like option full CPA, B, or just the complete. And none of that's popping up, but I'll go back to 1920 and take a look in section 4, and I'll send you both an email.
Okay,
Yeah,
and we can bring it up. I mean, right now it's locked. You can
Yeah.
only view, but if we have to,
Right.
rearrange something, we can put it back to draft and we can work on it. So you have what you need
Okay.
in 2020 and you can work with your students.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you both.
No
Thank
problem.
you. Mhm. Let's see, we have a question.
Okay.
I have 2 students who took off this past year, but will be returning in the fall of 21. Will they need to be listed as leaving the program in the 2021 year? No, they didn't exit the program. You didn't, when you get your last year's report, when you pull up your last year's report, they should be pulled up, right, Kelly?
Yeah.
They should be in there. And they are continuing in your program. So they haven't exited yet, they're continuing.
Yeah, I haven't opened a student report yet, so I don't know that they'll pop up, or they should, because I never said that they were leaving. We thought they were coming back, but then because of COVID and that, they didn't take classes this year.
And so
Okay.
here's the question, last year, did you put them as completers or not?
No, because I thought they were coming back.
Okay, so then they'll still be in there.
Mhm.
And then Jeanette, can you edit the section for the program forms, or do we need? Jeanette, help us understand what needs to be edited other than what we were talking about, like with Vivian. How do you edit?
Yeah,
You can edit, you can add credentials and stuff like that, you can. Go ahead.
Okay, because I think the way that it's put in there is different than the way we have it set up. So I was trying to delete it and try to add it back in the way that we've got it set up, but it's not letting me do that. It's not letting me delete anything. I think I can add the credential, but it's not letting me delete or make the edits to what's already there. So is that
Well,
something we would have to work with you on doing? Because I think it was pulled from the annual report, but or from the not from the annual
Application.
report, but
From the application, I think. Yeah.
but it's slightly, but we're doing something slightly different than what was in the application. It's really about more like the wording and the way it's set up. So
Okay.
is that something we need to work with you on, Claudia?
You
To
may,
make the changes
but I
to
want,
it?
you may, Jeanette, but that's similar to a question that was asked earlier. Whatever you had as your approved program or a previous report for the 2021 year, that's what we did. You probably, because you haven't started enrolling students yet, you probably revisit it and are already thinking about changes as you get students coming in. And so right now, that may be an option that we look at that would happen in your next year's report. Or once we're done with the workshop and we get another time, we can look and see what, if it's minor changes or something like that, what we need to do. But it is, in this case, you didn't have any students this year, right?
Well, technically we will, because we have students enrolling now for
In the summer?
June, for
Okay.
the summer, yeah.
Okay. And
So we will have them for this year.
Yeah. So I think maybe, we could take a look and see what that edit
Okay.
entails, because it might be something that really would happen next year.
Right.
'Cause
And
it's from your
Jeanette,
group.
yeah, to you, if you are in the student, are you looking at the students or are you looking at the program report?
No, I mean, I'm looking at the program because I think
Oh.
we have to finish the program part before we
Right.
can go on to the student part. So
Okay.
those were the changes that I was trying to make.
Okay. If
before-
you
so we can go
haven't
on to the student part.
If you have it open in edit mode, it should be allow you to edit the credentials and certifications and delete. But as Jenny said, we can definitely take a look to see if that is what we actually need to do in your case.
Yeah, it won't let me delete. It will let me add in edit mode.
Okay.
It won't let me
Oh.
delete any of the credentials.
Okay.
I think we'll probably need to take a look.
Mm-hmm.
at this.
Okay, that sounds fine. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, something actually that I think I forgot to mention, and it's especially on the students, you will notice at the end of each section, we have a question that says, provide any needed clarification related to section 1. So I think that might help Kelly to clarify what's happening, or to have notes for you, for us, and for you regarding those students at that particular case. So take advantage of that. Take advantage of that last question in each section to have notes. We have one of those in each section in the student report.
And Claudia, that might be, because I was thinking, as we look at the CTEs, because several of them, again, have that OCP level, that might be where Vivian and other colleagues who may have to look at writing language in there related to the student in that box until we refigure the functionality in Salesforce, if that's going to be an issue. Don't know that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but definitely when we take a look at Vivian's, we will know more. Okay. Okay, so I was here in section 6. This is about the courses the students enrolled in. So it's the different type of courses. And so notice here that if the student is not enrolled, then the rest of the fields will not be active. So if the answer is yes, then the other fields will be there available for you to complete and say how many courses the student enrolled. If it's hours, if it's credits, what is exactly related to that type of course. The total number of courses the student is enrolled, similar here, the career cluster, and this one also have the choose all that applies. So you can also go with multiple options if that's the case for the student. And then we have the questions regarding the employment. So in this case, I have, for example, I have 2-3 notes in here for shelter workshop or for competitive employment. But for example, if you say yes, this student was engaged in a paid work experience. So if you say yes, you're going to have a set of additional questions to respond if it was related to the FPCTP, what time was that unpaid work experience taking place during the FPCTP, outside or in both, which is the case, and how many hours the student worked, and the career cluster that employment opportunity is related to. And similar to what I mentioned in section 1, there is also an area here to provide any additional information regarding the student. Especially, I think in this section 2 is very important, because section 2 is regarding what happened with the student during this reporting year. So I think that will be the place to have that extra information or extra notes that you might want to add. Janice, do we have any questions? I will move to section 3, which is the final section.
No question.
Okay, so I'm going to go up for a second. And what I'm going to do for our student Melanie is I'm going to say that she is exiting the program. So if I close here, then we're going to see section 2, which is the student exiting information. In this case so why was the last day the student enrolled? So basically the date. And why the student leave the FPCTP. This is also a very important question to complete. If the student completed the program requirements, it means that the student finished the program, the student completed the program, and graduated. So you will have to do follow-up reports on the student for 5 years. So this is actually the question that connects with the follow-up reports. So that is what is going to tell Salesforce, this student needs to be in the list of the available students to do follow-up report. So make sure that you are completing this correctly. If did not completed the program, then you have a set of other questions to respond. Why did not complete it? Explain the reasons the student leave. And then we have if the student earned any credentials when the student completed the FPCTP. If you say yes, what it will happen is I will show you the same set of credentials. And in this case, we have Melanie enrolled in baking and pastry. So in this case, the checkbox is going to come up instead of saying it's enrolled, or the status is going to ask us to confirm that it earned the whatever it was related to that concentration. If also the student, or if the program have certifications included in this concentration, and Melanie was supposed to take the exam for food safety. What she did, you just check the box, say that she earned it, save, and saved here before you move on. So that happens to all the concentrations, all the micro-credentials where the student is enrolled and the student earn at the completion of the program. That's what Section 3 is about. So that's what we're asking in here. Then we asked about the plans of the student in the following 12 months after the student exited the program. What's the student going to do? It's going to be in competitive employment. What type? It's going to be full-time. It's going to be part-time. It's going to be, maybe it's going to be other, and you're going to have an option there to describe. So, and what are the student plans? For you to describe it, you have any additional information with student plans for the following year. This is the place to have it. And similarly to the other sections, you also have an area for clarification or notes on Section 3. Okay, any questions before I move to the submission process? No? Okay. So similarly to the program, we have, you can save it as a draft if you're not sure, if you're not sure about the data, or if you are, if you're still working on the student information, you have the option to save as a draft. It will stay with you. It will not come to us. So it will be available for you to keep working until you're sure that it's ready to submit it, and then it's that you save as complete. This might look similar to the scholarship request forms that you might be working right now. So we have been trying to be consistent with the way that we set up the submission process in Salesforce. So it's the same procedure that you use with the scholarship request form for the students. So it is the same mechanism, the same steps. So for Melanie, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save as complete, and it's going to exit the form. So the interesting thing here is you save it as complete and you are ready to submit. And you, let's say, and you also have Drew, which was that new student that we have. If I check Drew, the next step will be submit to Fcsua up here after I select my 2 students. I'm getting an error because I am trying to submit on a student that is in a draft status. So you're not going to be able to do that. All your students, all the students that you're going to submit, they have to be on a complete. They have to be saved as complete, making sure that you're done, that your data is accurate. That's when you do that. So if we change through, and we're going to open that up, we're going to go to the end, and we save as complete. And now we check both Drew and Melanie, and I submit to Fcsua, then it will go through because both were saved as complete. And the status, you notice that actually changed from complete to submitted. What happened, similarly to what I explained with the annual reports program information, is that the edit option now is grayed out because now it's on our end. You're not going to be able to edit that.
Okay, we do have a question.
Mm-hmm.
April doesn't see Section 3 exit info for St. Pete. That may be related to what you mentioned earlier, whether they'll see exit Section 3 or not. Depends on what they check.
It depends on that question, and that question in Section 2. So if you're saying in Section 2 that the student is continuing next year, then you're not going to see Section 3. For you to be able to see Section 3, your student it has to be exiting the program during this reporting year. So that's always going back to the time frame that we're working on. You are going to report to the students that exited the program or going to exit the program during the 2020-2021. So for those are the ones that you're going to mark as exited the program, and then you're going to see Section 3.
April, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so similar to the program information form, the revision process is the same. So if there are updates required for a student, if something is not correct, you're going to receive an email saying the student Melanie Bison is not needs the student report formality requires attention, you're going to receive an email saying that please log in, and you're going to see the same comments section that we have, comment area that we have for each section in the report. You're going to see it because they're blue, a different color for you to pop up or when you open up the form. Take a look at those comments, work on those comments and submit it back to us in the same way that you submitted when you initially submitted the reports, the student reports to us. If it's approved, then you will receive a notification email saying that the student reports has been approved. And similarly to the annual reports program information, you do get the same, you get the reminders in the same time frames that the program information go out. So 90 days out, you get one that is starting May. Then 60 days out, you start getting reminders every Monday, 9 a.m. And you only get one reminder for the student. You're not gonna get a reminder for each student that you have in Salesforce. That I think that would be too much. And once you submit your student information reports, those reminders will stop. Okay, I think we finished student information. So let's see if anyone has any questions.
No, not right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then let's go to the follow-up reports. So, and that is right here next to the student information. So we click there. As we mentioned, and remember that let's actually go back. I have Janice. I have Janice as a student, and I was not going to be able to clone Janice. It's because I indicated that Janice finished the program. She completed the program's requirements. She graduated. So that means that her name is going to be in the student follow-up reports. And I also have another record here to show you how to do and a student that you have been working on follow-up report for a year now. And that's why we have Iris Neal. So we already have a report. So we also have a cloning function. So for you to take advantage of that. So you don't have to do follow-up reports from scratch for 5 years for the same student. So if you are having a situation like the student that we have named Janice, that is the first year after Janice has graduated, then you're gonna click new. If you click new, same thing that we explained with the student information. You need to make sure that you first enter the reporting academic year. If you don't enter the reporting academic year, the students' names are not going to pop up. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna do 2021, and we're gonna click select students. As you can see, all my student list is here, the ones that I requested scholarships, but the only student that I have available is Janice. So it actually tells you, it helps you out to reduce the list, to make sure that you complete the follow-up report for those students that you have to complete the follow-up report, and only those. So what you do is you select, and it completes Janice's information, student full name and the student ID. You close this, and now you can actually finish on the form. What I'm gonna do is I am going to exit. I'm actually gonna save this one as a draft. And I'm going to show you how the cloning functionality works with student, with IDIS. If I click cloning functionality, I get all the information from the 2019 report, and it also updates the year for you. So you don't have to do that. Everything comes up. You just need to make sure that you are revising that information. This form is exactly the same as the section 4 of that Word document that we had before. So all the questions are the same. We only transfer that to Salesforce. So you are familiar with the questions. It's exactly that section 4. Everything was in a single Word document before. We thought that it was better if we divide those two. So you have your regular report for the students that are enrolled, your newest students or your continuing students, and then you have another tab only for the follow-up reports. Something else to mention in here, you know that the follow-up report have to be completed for 5 years. Once you have completed a report for Iris, in this case, for 5 years, her name is not going to come up anymore. So you know you don't have to do Iris report anymore. So that will also help you out to know which student do you have to work on follow-up reports. So that's also a way the Salesforce have to filter, and we have set it up for you to know and work on your follow-up reports. So let's go ahead to the questions in here. This one doesn't have section. This one is pretty straightforward. It's very simple. So the first thing is when the student completed the FPCTP, so it's basically the date. If you were able to reach out to someone that can provide that information that we are requesting. It was yes. So what was the how was that information collected? It was email, it was phone number, it was in person. You have option to say other if that's the case, and you can describe who provided the information. Was it the student? Was the parent? The applicant? Maybe someone else. You also get to describe and talk about a little bit who that other person was. When was the information collected? So it's another date field for you to enter when was that student collected. And then living situation. Where is the student living during this year? Options very similar to the ones that we have in the student forms, regular form. And if the situation is other, you also have a place to describe if that is the case. So then we ask about employment. So which of the following best describe this former student current employment status? You have several options in there. If you're saying that it's competitive integrated employment, a set of questions actually comes up to ask you about how many hours is the student working? How is the student being compensated? So it's an hourly wage, tips. How is that? How much is the student receiving per hour and per week? So all those questions, same as that we have in that Word document form. Also, we ask about the career cluster where that employment is related to. So you get to select where is the area, the field that the student is working, if it's working currently, the job title and the employer. If that's not the case, you will see selecting through all these options in here that the set of questions are going to change. Maybe the student is self-employed. So then you're not gonna, your set of questions are going to be different. You're going to describe what is that say self-employment about, how many hours is the student working. So similarly, or maybe the student is not currently employed. Then you don't have anything else to say. So there is a logic there. It's there are tools in there to help you out to respond to different set of questions depending on the employment situation of the student and the follow-up report. Then maybe if the student is not employed, maybe it was employed at some point. So you have the option here to say what kind of employment experience or work was the student doing. This is also a multiple pick list, so you have multiple choices in here. You do just control and you select or command, and you select multiple if that is the case. Okay, and if the student was enrolled in any post-secondary training or experiences the previous year, if you get to say yes or no. If the answer is yes, then you say, well, maybe the student earned something. Maybe it was a degree seeking or it was another FPCTP. So that kind of options can be selected there. Maybe the student earned additional certifications. So here's where you say, okay, yes, the student earned additional certifications. And if that's the case, then you just enter what was that degree of that credential or certification that the student earned. And the other one is related to benefits. What kind of benefit is the student selecting? You might have the situation where it's more than one. So this is a multiple choice. So you can select different options in here, and you also have the way to say other. So if that's the case, you can also expand on that option. Similar to a student report, the regular student report, is you also have an area for clarifications. So please use that, take advantage of that for your notes. anything that you want to clarify about this student, so that this is the place to have that information. Any questions?
No questions right now? No?
Okay.
Doing a great job.
Okay, so same as we did with the regular, with the students that you submitted to us last year. If you have students, if you have follow-up reports, in that case, it was actually the section 4 of that Word document. If that was the case, if you had graduates, we also entered that information for you. So you are going to see that information in there. And then it's when you can take advantage of the cloning functionality, so you don't have to start working over. You only do new for your new graduates. So that's something else to keep in mind. Let me scroll down and very quickly go to this one more time.
So Amanda, you want to know, does it matter the length of time for employment, like 6 months or the entire time? I think in here, we want to know if they worked at all during the time that they've been out and you've been following up with them. And again, you have an opportunity to maybe explain some information. Like we had on reports last year where students were working up until March. So when they were doing follow-up, students worked up until March, but then COVID hit. And so they didn't work. So we had several students who were in competitive employment prior to March. And then they were no longer employed after that, during that reporting year.
Right.
Okay, Marissa, what about if you cannot reach a graduate student to fill out this report? Or would we just not submit? No, you want to submit follow-up, and we asked that.
Yeah, we asked that in question 1. So were you able to reach out to someone that can provide information? If the answer is no, you get to answer no, but you still can't have the record, because maybe the following year you are able to contact that person. So instead of starting over, you can clone that report and just edit that report with the new information that was provided to you.
And we do want to know, how did you try? I mean,
exactly.
how many times did you try? What were your efforts? Like B asked,
exactly.
What were your efforts to really reach the person or someone who knows the person? Does that answer your question, Marissa?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Go down. Yeah, similar to the program, to the student information, the regular reports, this reports get submitted in the same way. You can save as a draft and you save as complete if you're done. And remember that to submit it to us, you have to be saved as complete. So I'm gonna go ahead and click save as complete. And here it's gonna be similar. I'm gonna have 2 reports, and if I try to submit Iris's and Janice, it's gonna give me an error because Janice's status is draft, so it's not saved as complete. So for that, I just have to go back into the report. Scroll down, save as complete if everything is ready. Select and submit to FCSU. Excuse me. And then the same set of notifications will come up to your email, telling you that you have submitted the reports. And if you submit, in this case, and it actually happens the same with the student, with the student information. When you submit a set of students, you don't get an email for each student. You get one email with a list of all the students that you have submitted. So we just don't want to have your inbox full of emails when we can actually compile that into one. So it will make a list of all the ones you have submitted, of all the ones we have approved. So it only is going to be one email. The only time that is different is if there are additional information requested from our end, and then you're gonna get the updates needed notification email. But that one, it's gonna be only for that student in particular that we're having additional questions. So that's the only case that you're gonna receive one email for a student in particular. But in the other cases, when you're submitting or we are approving, you're just going to get one notification. So you will get a list of all the students that were submitted and all the students that were approved, if that's the case. Regarding the reminders, we don't have a different reminder for the follow-up, because when we send a reminder about the student, it's about all the students. It includes student information and follow-up. All the 3 annual reports are due the same day. So we don't saw the need to have a different email as a notification to also remind you about students' follow-up report. So when you get the student report, it's you have to work in both to submit it by August 1st. I think that's it.
That's it. That's no questions. Man, you guys really asked some great questions.
Yeah.
And help make us aware of some other maybe glitches. We don't know, but we'll see if there's some glitches in what we have. So that is really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Things we didn't think about. I'm trying to say, is this a new question? How would amendments to a follow-up work? For example, if I submit it as complete, but found out later from a student that they forgot to mention something important in the initial follow-up, is there a certain person? Well, you can, if you want to, you can reach out to us, email to Fcsua and say, I need to get back into my annual report, and I could change the status, just like I did with Vivian, accidentally hit submitted today. We can go back in and change the status for you, so you can go back in and actually work in it, Marissa.
Right.
That'll work. Yeah. And other than that, I don't think there's any others. That's great. It's, again, we hope that you had some student information and you could follow along and enter some of it or see how it entered. Like Claudia said, she was showing one option. Your program, unique to your program option, as you look in Salesforce, you may have chosen option 1, option 2, option 3. That's how we have it set up to know whether you, to tell us about your number of concentrations and tracks and the structure of your program. So based on that and what you had in your application or your annual report is what you currently see. If we need edits or something like that, we need to take a look at. If there were errors, then let us know and just reach out to us and we can work through with you to make those corrections.